Hey guys, welcome back for another edition of Thyroid Thursday. And today I want to talk about a pretty controversial topic, at least from my perspective and my bias, is that this idea of optimizing thyroid physiology by providing a bunch of T3. Okay, so there's some people in the integrative and functional medicine space that when they see somebody who has normal or low TSH and they have normal T4 and low T3 and maybe a high or normal reverse T3, they may consider the fact that somebody is a non-converter, and the reason they have hypothyroid symptoms is because their body is deactivating T4 to reverse T3 and decreasing the conversion to T3, and therefore they need to optimize your thyroid physiology by giving you T3. And that's kind of a starting point for people. And I think this is a problem. And I've done a bunch of videos on it, more videos, but this is brought up the other day, so I figured I'd talk about it one more time in the Thyroid Thursday video. So does T3 optimize thyroid physiology when you just give T3 because the body's not converting it? I would say in most cases, the answer is no. If you're one of those people who has diagnose 2 polymorphism, is it possible that T3 could improve your thyroid physiology? Yeah. Can giving T3 thyroid hormone make you feel better, at least temporarily? Sure it can. But is it optimizing thyroid physiology? I would say for the vast majority of people, it doesn't, and it's a slippery slope because what I've seen is once you start that roller coaster, I'm gonna take some and I feel a little bit better, and then you plateau, and then you need more, and you need more, and you need more, and then we see people on really high dose T3 still not feeling very well and having other kinds of problems. So let me talk about this a little bit. So keep in mind, if T3 or free T3 is low and we just give T3 to raise the blood value, it's not optimizing thyroid physiology. You're just flooding the system with more T3. And what people often see is that when they do their blood tests and they don't take their T4 or T3 before that blood draw, despite taking a bunch of T3, their T3 total and their free T3 levels are too low often, especially as they go up higher and higher in the dose. Because as they go up higher and higher in the dose, and if they're taking T4 as well, they're suppressing TSH. So they're totally dependent on the T3 that they're getting. So the half-life of T3 is short, so they go to get their blood draw. It's maybe 12 hours or longer since they had their T3 dose, and you're not seeing a lot of that T3 in circulation because the half-life is shorter. So when you provide the T3 medication to make the blood values look good, we also have to consider where is T4 and T3 coming from, and why might T4 be normal and T3 be low? So T4 is made in the gland. You can take it, but most of the T4 naturally is made in the thyroid gland, or all of the T4 is made in the thyroid gland. You can take it, regardless if your gland makes it or you take T4 medication. Where does T3 come from? Well, if you still have a functional gland and you haven't suppressed it by driving TSH too low, then the thyroid gland can make some T3. But most of the T3 comes from peripheral conversion, primarily by an enzyme called deiodinase 2. There's some done by deiodinase 1, but deiodinase 1's primary job is not converting T4 to T3. Its primary job is metabolizing reverse T3. So if you see that your T3 or free T3 is low on a blood panel, ask better questions. Ask why. Why might it be low? Is it because I don't have a gland that can produce it? If I suppress TSH too low? Is the peripheral conversion the issue? Like the peripheral tissues aren't converting T4 to T3 because of some type of cell stress, cell danger physiology. Cells get to determine what happens to that T4 and that T3 that reaches it. If a cell is in a low stress or homeostatic state, it's going to increase the conversion of T4 to T3 to turn on the manufacturing process, to make peptides and hormones and all this good stuff that makes us feel good. But if the cells are perceiving danger or threat, they are going to decrease the amount of T4 that's converted to T3. They'll increase the T4 that's deactivated to reverse T3. Now, the other question we have to ask is am I just taking too much thyroid hormone replacement therapy? Definitely, if you're taking T4 and driving TSH too low, and I'll talk about what might be considered the right range for T4 on medication. I think it should be higher than most people consider. But if you're taking too much T4, your T3 is going to go down. This is why a lot of people who provide T4 only don't run T3, because as you increase T4 in the bloodstream, it actually suppresses the conversion of T4 to T3 into peripheral tissue, because T4 shuts down deiodinase 2. So too much T4 reduces T4 to T3 conversion in peripheral cells that actually have this deiodinase 2 enzyme. So what do? If you get your blood back and your TSH is normal, but your T4 is low, your T3 is low, and your reverse T3 is low, this is a gland that's not making enough thyroid hormone, right? There's just not enough. But why would TSH still be normal? Well, one of the things to do is check to see if there's inflammatory markers. When you have a stress response going on, there's inflammation in the system, you're going to get increased conversion of T4 to T3 into hypothalamus, which can cause that TSH to be lower, even though you're in a hypothyroid state. So inflammation can kind of hide that hypothyroid state that's developing. The other thing you can do is you can look at the free T3 to free T4 ratio and see what's going on there. If it's a true kind of glandular low hormone production issue, you should see an increased free T3 to free T4 ratio, because the cells are starving and want more T3, and so they're going to increase that conversion of T4 to T3. So look at that ratio. 2, if TSH is low and T4 is high and reverse T3 is high, this could mean that you're taking too much T4 medication, and that higher T4 medication is actually suppressing the conversion of T4 to T3. So again, you can check this free T3 to free T4 ratio. If it's low, there's decreased conversion. Flooding the system with T3 might actually give you a little boost, because that T3 can get into the cell. It can, if deiodinase 3 is deactivating T4, it's going to deactivate some of that T3 as well. But some of the one of the T3 metabolites, T2, can actually still support the mitochondria and the cellular physiology, just not at the same high level. If TSH is high, the pituitary gland may be sensing there's not enough T3 in the system. And so what we need to do is kind of let that roll, because the pituitary gland may be sensing, hey, there's not enough T4 to T3 conversion. And the pituitary gland is monitoring that and stimulating that thyroid gland to try and generate more T3. In this situation, is T3 the solution? It will normalize the blood, but it's not necessarily going to normalize the peripheral thyroid physiology. Again, this is a question where we have to ask, why might the peripheral cells not be converting T4 to T3? The last thing to consider is, what does the rest of the blood panel show? If you've watched a couple of these videos and you listen to the podcast, you can't really assess thyroid physiology by just running a thyroid panel. You have to look for inflammatory markers and then tissue indicators of thyroid status, lipids, insulin markers, and blood sugar markers, renal markers, adrenal markers, right? You can look for patterns of hypothyroidism. And so this is one of the key things when people say, well, I've optimized, or my doctor's optimized my T3 with T3 medication, then I say, okay, you've artificially normalize the blood levels, but let's look at the tissue indicators. Are the tissue indicators getting better? Do they still have insulin resistance? Do they still have elevated lipids? Do they still have low adrenal function? Do they still have detoxification issues? If they do, yes, we've normalized the blood levels of T3, but we haven't optimized the thyroid physiology in the cells, because the thyroid physiology often isn't broken, but it's adapting to excessive cell stress. And that's where we need to put the time and attention. What's creating the excessive cell stress and causing the body to adaptively downregulate metabolism, and stop considering all the time that the body is broken and forgot how to do this stuff. If you got questions, comments, or controversies, put them below wherever you watch the video. Thanks.